Welcome back to our next history lesson. And today we are going to be looking and trying to explain some of the religious beliefs and practice of early Anglo-Saxon people. And that's a big difference between the early and the later, because Christianity does get involved later on. So we're just going to look at the early ones to begin with. So many people in Britain knew about Christianity from Roman times. The Romans brought it across with them, and that was before the Anglo-Saxons invaded. However, when the Anglo-Saxons came across from Denmark and Germany, they brought with them their own religious beliefs, and the Christian religion was only then practiced in parts of the country where the Anglo-Saxons had not settled. The religion they brought with them was called paganism, its own belief system. So Anglo-Saxons were therefore called pagans, and in their religion, which of the following do you think were true? They worshipped lots of different gods and goddesses. They used wooden temples or wooden clearings to worship. They believed in magic, including charms, fortune telling, and spells. They wore amulets containing good luck charms like animal teeth or shells. They made animal sacrifices to gods. They believed in the existence of dragons, goblins, and elves. And they buried people in graves with the best possessions, as they believed these objects would be taken to the afterlife. Which of these do you think are true of the pagan beliefs? Well, all of them are true. And this is where a lot of our stories come from in that time, and they bring in lots of things like items which have magical powers, or the dragons, goblins, and elves come from this sort of time period. So if we think about pagan festivals, and it is an interesting one because it does link to Britain now, which one of these is similar to some of the festivals we celebrate today? Our first one is Symbolic, which is on February the 2nd. It's a celebration of the mysteries of femininity and the mother and the pregnant womb. It's associated with the goddess Bridget and worshipped in various forms of fire, and it's a quiet togetherness of the family with the colours pink, red, and white. Our next one is Istra, which celebrates the bursting of frost and the coming of spring and fertility festival. The fertility symbols are bunnies, eggs, ducklings. It symbolises a time of new beginning. Hot cross buns symbolize the sun in its perfect balance of equal night and day, and were baked and shared. The birth of the green man, who is complemented by the red maiden, the green maiden and the red, the green man and the green maiden and the red maiden. These four symbolizes the togetherness of mankind with plants and animals in nature. Does this one remind you of anything? And there might be quite a few links in this one. Our next one is Beltane. This is on May the 1st. It's also a celebration of fertility and the fullness of spring. Maypoles and flowers after the maypole is wound, the couples would traditionally go green growing. Bonfires, castles would be purified and couples would become fertile. People would wear green associated with the colours of the fairies. The marriage of the green man and the red maiden, and the red man and the green maiden, symbolize the togetherness of nature. And there's a little bit in there about something that we don't do now. Then we have Luther on June the 21st. It's a celebration of the summer and the Earth Mother. And this is a popular time for marriages, since they believe that this would bring the blessings of the mother, Earth Mother. It is a time of blessing for the plentiful crops and harvested late in the year. Can anyone know where the link is here and what happens around this sort of time every year? Then we got Lugnasha, which is on August the 1st. And this is a celebration of the fullness of summer. Fires, feasting, games were enjoyed on that day. Men and boys would compete in races, wrestling and rowing. The winners would come in charge of protecting the villages in the coming years, and the worship of the green man and the red man in reference of the male energy. This is an interesting one because it's around this time that they're chosen for their protectiveness. Then we have Mabun on September the 21st. This is a celebration of the bounties of harvest. Beer and wine were served in tribute to generous harvests. Harvests needed to be shared with an entire village throughout the winter in order to incur the blessing of the gods. So this does link to something that we have now. See if you can find out what. Then we have Samhain on November the 1st. This is the celebration of death of summer and the end of harvest. It is believed that the dead could cross over and be with the living. And food and drink were set out for spirits who were guided by lights, torches. The death of the Green Man, and in some cultures, a man from the village was chosen to represent the Green Man and would be ritualistically sacrificed. Doesn't happen now, but in some cultures. It's the witches' Sabbath, the time of the year for witchcraft to be prevalent, as the witches could conduct seances and have conferences with the dead as they were closer to the dead on that day. Samhain. What might that link with in our current calendar? Then we have Yule. It's a celebration of slumber in the earth, of the coming of the end, the celebration of the birth of the sun and the god out of the sun god out of the night. Candlemas. Candles were lit during the longest night of the year. Yule logs. 2 Yule logs were burned, one from the previous year and one for the new year. This symbolized burning out the old year and burning in the new year. And children would be led from house to house with gifts of clove-spiked apples and oranges. Where do we think our celebrations might link with this one? But to be fair, there are lots of things that are carved over from this. It's interesting to see the links. I want you to take a moment and see if you can find any links between these and any of the things that we celebrate now or things that we might know about now. And then we have the name of our days, and all the name of our days come from the pagan gods worshipped in Anglo-Saxon times. And this is really interesting because this is a hangover from the Anglo-Saxons. We are still classed as Anglo-Saxons because we get so much of our stuff from them. So Monday is Moon's Day, on the day of the moon. We have Tuesday, which is Twi's Day, and that's the god of war and combat. We have Wednesday, which is Woden's Day, who's the day of the chief of the Anglo-Saxon god Woden, much like Odin in Norse mythology. We have Thursday, or Thor's Day, which is the name of the god of Donor and Thondor. We have Friday, which is Freig's Day, which is the goddess Frigg. We have Saturday, which is Saturn's Day, which is the day of the Roman god Saturn, and Sunday, which is Sun's Day, the day of the sun, in Old Norse Sol. And there's lots of links here between why we've named them what we have named. They come from this time, and just think about Wednesday being Woden's Day. You can see how, if it's said lots of times, it might get confused. The Pope wanted the people of Britain, including the Anglo-Saxons, to be Christians. So he sent a monk to teach the people all about Christianity. And this is where the change happened. So St. Columba was the first to try. He came over in 563 and he headed to Britain and built a monastery in the Isle of Iona, off the west coast of Scotland. Whilst he was successful in converting many Scots, he was too far away to affect the Anglo-Saxons in England. Next came St. Augustine. And St. Augustine came in around 597 AD, and whilst in Britain, he converted a king to Christianity, and together with a number of king's friends, he also built Canterbury Cathedral with a little help. And this is quite important because it's still there now. There it is. But most of the ordinary Anglo-Saxons at that time still remained pagans, and that's quite important. Next, we had St. Aidan. St. Aidan came across and was the last of the three. He came across in around 634, and he built the monastery on Lindisfarne, which is an island off of Northumbria in the northeast of England. And it is now but you can imagine what it must look like. This is what it looks like now. And you can go to Jemison and see it if we're not in lockdown. But St. Aidan did something that the other monks had not done before. He spoke to the ordinary people of England, the Anglo-Saxons. And because of this, gradually he was able to spread his teachings throughout England. And that's when England became a Christian country. So now the Anglo-Saxon Christians worship just one God. They believe that Jesus died on the cross to come back to life in order to help the people and to be forgiven by God. He was a sacrifice. Believe that the message of the gospel is good news because believers in Jesus could live forever in God's heaven, the afterlife. They thought the Bible was the word of God. They were baptized with water when they became Christians and went to wooden churches to worship God and learn about the Bible. And some people became monks or nuns and dedicated their life to praying and learning about God. And here we have an image, a picture, which shows that teaching of Christianity to others. So your task today, what I want you to try and do, I want you to research one of the Anglo-Saxon pagan gods. Find out who they were. Focus down on just one of them. Explain what they were a god of and how people would worship them in Anglo-Saxon times. And then I want you to draw the gods you have chosen. So you're making a fact file about this god in order to, you could share it with other people and they would learn about that particular god too. That's all for today. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.